sometimes it gets pretty windy. And the wind wants to cut right underneath the trailer and blow into camp. This is the side of the trailer that we typically set up our living space. We have a attachable table that sets up here. We'll set up a fireplace, the chairs. The back side of the trailer is where the wind would be coming from, and that's where we'll do dishes and chores like that. If you've watched our other videos on setting up camp or using the awning, you'll know why this is important. So we want to block off this space underneath the trailer from the back, behind the tire, and around to the tongue of the trailer. I've measured the total length and also the height that I need from the ground to the bottom of the frame and developed the plan. The fabric will be staked to the ground and hooked underneath the trailer at the frame. The plan includes a cutout for the axle. The measurements for this plan are specifically for our teardrop trailer. Here are the supplies we're going to need for completing the project. We have some ripstop nylon, optional brass grommets, small diameter bungee cord. There's a special roller foot for the sewing machine. That's to work with the thin nylon fabric. Some hooks and thread. I started by marking the center line so I could cut this fabric in half lengthwise. 30 1/2 inches. Rotary cutter makes it a lot easier. Now that the material has been cut lengthwise, I can sew the two ends together to create one long piece. Before I start sewing, I need to swap the standard foot for this one that has the roller. The roller will help feed this thin, slippery nylon and prevent it from being sucked down along with the needle. There's a lever that you simply push in. Then the new foot is aligned and snapped into place. I'm matching the two corner cuts together and then sewing the line. I'm using a little bit of tension behind the machine to help hold this thin fabric taut. This seam is going to be subjected to winds. I want it to be sturdy, so I'm going to fold it over and sew it again. The raw edge of this type of material won't fray, but I've decided to fold it over, lay it down flat, and finish this seam off with a zigzag stitch. And there's the finished seam. I want the finish width to be 17 1/2 inches, so I'm going to cut the rough width at 25 1/2. That leaves 4 inches on either side to fold under and create the hem. I want the finished length to be 134 inches, so the rough cut will be 142. Next, I want to mark 4 inches all the way around the entire perimeter. Next, I'm going to iron a crease right along that line. The iron is set at synthetic, or the lowest setting. And it irons a pretty good crease. I found it easiest to find the mark, make a fold, and then use a spring clamp to hold it in place. That leaves the other hand free to help manipulate the fabric. Now we fold the fabric over to that crease and iron this fold. There's our first crease, which was at 4 inches. And then we folded the fabric to that crease and iron this, and that's 2 inches. And then we'll fold it over at that first crease. And this is where we'll sew. So this fabric will be 3 layers thick all the way around the perimeter. The plan calls for grommets, or buttonholes, for the anchor points and for the places to put the pegs. I find it usually pays to test something like this on a piece of scrap first. An alternative to buttonholes are grommets. This kit contains everything necessary for installing grommets other than a hammer. Look for it in the video description area. The kit is easy to use. The first thing we need to do is punch out the fabric. Find the location for the grommet and then just tap the cutter on the soft piece of wood. That punches a hole through the fabric. Then you add the first part of the collar and then cover it with the second part of the collar. And then find the proper size anvil, the large for the 1/2 inch. It sets over the top. And then we need the driver, which is the large 1/2 inch size. That screws together. This sets in the hole, and then you just hammer it into place. And there you have it. It's an alternative to using the buttonhole. There are pros and cons for using grommets. On the plus side, they resist abrasion a little bit better than a buttonhole would, especially for the tent stakes. But on the downside, over time, a lot of tension on a grommet will often oversize the hole in the fabric, and then the grommet will actually fail. It takes quite a bit, but there you have it. But grommets are strong enough to do the job, and they're easy to install. Next, I'm going to mark the buttonhole locations for each of the anchor points. This machine uses a buttonhole attachment. You add a button to the back side of the diameter that you want your hole to be. This one will make a buttonhole that's about the right size for our tent stakes. You just release the standard foot and add the buttonhole foot in its place. That's it. I like to use a scrap of material to feed the top thread down to the bobbin thread. A single stitch is all that's needed. There we go. There's a return arm that comes down, and then the settings to buttonhole and the stitch size, and we're ready. This buttonholer allows for cordage to be added into the stitching, and I'm going to use this fishing line size nylon. And rip the material from between the buttonhole stitches. Just be careful not to over push, or you could slice right through the other end. That's it. This is the cutout for the trailer axle, and I decided to reinforce that with some webbing. Each of the 5 upper buttonholes gets a short piece of shot cord tied to a small stainless steel hook. I ended up with a nice scrap for making a small storage bag. I ironed a 1/2-inch fold at these edges and a 1-inch fold for the drawstring. Now we can figure out how long this needs to be and cut it to length. here's why it works. We have it tied down here and pinned down to the ground. And there's the little cutout for the axle. Come around to this side. And that's what it looks like here. It's hooked up underneath the frame and then continues around to the front. And is pinned down to the ground here and up to this part of the trailer frame. So it is sealed pretty darn well. It took a long time before I started to carry a proper hammer for driving in tent stakes. It also works great for pulling them out, and it can be tricky depending on the soil type. This is really dense, clingy soil. It's pretty damp right now, so it's almost like clay, and it can be a real chore to pull these out without having the right kind of tool. So I highly recommend. I mean, it's lightweight, it's got a hollow aluminum handle, but it actually has a little bit of heft on the pounding end. It's just well engineered, so it's a great thing to carry. I used to use rocks and the backside of a hatchet and all kinds of things to just, you know, MacGyver the stake into the ground, but this thing works great. Skirting is relatively easy to set up and to take down. It's even easier to take down than it is to set up. There's just one hook that's out of sight just about here, and it just hooks over the top of the trailer frame, and it's the only one that's a little bit of a reach. I think after setting this up a few times, it'll become even easier. There's one here, and then one about here, and then the one at the front. And that's it. It's all waterproof, and it's raining out right now, so it shakes out, you know, pretty dry. It would be something that probably want to air out and not have it put away soaked for too long. A wind coming in from the north, and it was just coming right underneath the trailer, and this thing is going to be really handy. I really like how compact this skirt turned out. I'm going to keep it stored here along with the galley wings, which we also use when it gets windy out.